Hello and welcome to another free code session. My name is Jason Bach. I'm going to keep fixing bugs in rocks before I finally get to some actual issues. It's September 1st today when I'm recording this, so happy Labor Day weekend. Very late. I think this is probably going to get released in October. Speaking of months and dates, so I've got October and November, 2 months left until .NET 9 comes out. And again, I don't have to have this released right when .NET 9 comes out, but there is a feature that was added in Rocks 9, if I go to my changelog, that does require and basically makes it so that you can't go back, depending upon issues. There's a little bit of a caveat there. So if you go to, where is it? Improved handling of refstruct, because now I'm using the allows refstruct feature within Rocks itself. So Rocks would still work if you didn't target refstructs, but that's becoming more and more prevalent, and especially with span. So it's something that I think is going to start to force people to be on .NET 9. And again, because I don't have many people using this, I'm okay with making that restriction. But that is something I do need to think about in the future, is how backwards compatible do I really want to be? Because if I wanted to be backwards compatible with this thing, which is if you're not on .NET 9, then do the old thing that you used to, otherwise do it this way. Now that's two separate paths that I've got to maintain in code. And I'm just not interested in doing that. There's no benefit for me to keep that in place. So, but I should think a little bit in the future about, is it possible to make this so that I'm a little bit more backwards compatible, if that makes sense? But that's a future problem for future me. What is not a future problem is this one. So this is actually a warning, which is, and it's a very edge case type of thing. If you have an interface here that has a parameter that has caller member name on it, so it's optional, because you're going to give it a default value. And then notice that the deriving class, I'm sorry, this is the deriving class, the interface, it does a new here. And in that case, what should happen is we're going to generate an explicit implementation of one of them. And I believe it's the new one. Oh, it's the base one. So we decided to choose the base one as being explicit. What we should not do is be generating this. Now, if you run this test, which I've already added in a branch and put this test in, if you run this, it does come back as passing, which is not what happens though when I run it in the code gen. So you can see it passes here down below and everything is good. But what we really should be doing is not have this in there. Well, for this one, we should, having the attribute and null here. Notice that in this case, we don't have the default value, and then we shouldn't have this one here. And when I did my research, it confirmed that basically the same thing is going to happen with other caller attributes like line number, member name, argument expression. So we're just going to do all four of these caller expressions, or caller attributes, so to speak. So basically what I think what we want to have happen here, and I could have probably made a simpler test in having like two base interfaces that have the same methods. And then I have an interface here that derives them from both of them. And it would be the same thing. But this is the case where it came up. So it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, what we want is this to not be there. So we're going to do that, but we're going to come back to that, because now we need to figure out where this is actually happening. And I believe I have a get attributes method somewhere. That's a test. Get attribute information. That's attribute get description. This is a test. Somewhere we do have attribute data extension tests. These are attribute data. What does this method do? Oh, I should. Come on, hit F12. Come on. Why is that not? I've noticed this on my work computer that for some reason F12 is not going to definition. I don't understand. Like, go to definition. Oh, because it is a definition. It's a Sunday morning. I'm still drinking coffee. So in fact, I'll keep that little coffee drinking episode in the video. I usually cut those out. Yes, I am there. So duh, it's not going to go anywhere else. So this is method symbol get attributes. Now we navigate to getting the attribute data. Right, but this is off of Roslyn. And it's actually in the symbol, which is fine, but we have attributes get description. So this gets an array of attributes on a symbol. We don't care where it came from. And then the attribute targets, that's also going to be helpful because we need to see, we're going to actually have to probably extend this because we're going to need a couple more pieces of information now, which is this from a member that was on an explicit definition? Because we can get attributes on a class. That's fine. We could get attributes on an assembly. If we get attributes on a property or a method, then that is part of an explicit definition that we're going to have to do. So we're going to have to put something in here that says, oh, by the way, we need to know that the target here, the attribute targets, is it a property? I'm sorry, not a property, a parameter. And does this come from a definition that is going to need to be explicit? So we've got the target here. We know that's going to be a parameter. Yeah, parameter or generic parameter. It's a param. That's fine. But actually, yeah, we just put it on here. We don't say it's a param. We just know it is. Okay. If it's not question mark, then we do actually put the param. We should be putting param there, but we don't. That's interesting. I'm almost positive this get description is being called all over the place. Yeah. Event model, method model, parameter model. So like attributes description for a parameter, we get the attributes and get the description. In this case, though, we need to know that the method that it's on, whether it's an index or a method, is going to be an explicit implementation, because we need that to come through here. Not explicit default value, that doesn't matter. It's the attributes itself. So how are we going to do this? Well, the first thing we're going to need is if a member will be implemented explicitly and the target type is a parameter, if a member will be implemented and the target type is a parameter and the parameter is optional, we can't emit these 4 caller attributes. We can't emit that. That's fine. So what we're going to need here is, yes, a caller. We'll do file path and we'll do that. And then we just get the other 4 in here. So caller line number and then caller member name. I thought there was one that was also something like an expression thing. That was, I thought it was here somewhere. Caller argument expression. Yes. Why was that not? Huh. Well, oh, great. Oh, that sucks. Are you kidding me? What I'm realizing is I bet this is something that can't be seen in .NET Standard 2.0. Another thing that needs to be polyfilled. .NET 6. That's where it was added. So it's, again, I know all the arguments that would be given back about making source generators and other things not required to target .NET Standard 2.0, but this is just another instance where this is just another paper cut. And I get it. All you have to do is say, fine, come here, go in my class. And I'm getting so many of these that I'm almost like, I should just make a folder called, what should I call it? Polyfills. I'm just going to do this because I'm getting so tired of this. Polyfills. So fine. Where's my close all but this? Close other tabs. I wish they would make that a keystroke. Okay, so this goes into polyfills. No, I don't. In this case, I don't want to do that. What are some other ones? External init. No. I think member identifier. No, that's a rocks thing. Yeah. We keep that there. We keep those. Right. Requires override. I think there's one more. It's not object equality. That's just something I have. But as I get more of these, I would put these in here. And so something like caller argument expression attribute. Caller argument expression attribute. File scope namespaces, do that. Yes. Yeah, this by expression member because that's all my code. But we're not going to do primary constructor. But that gives us the ability now to say, go away. Yeah, I get it. It's such a annoying little thing, and it's just never going to get better. It's just going to keep getting worse over time. And I really wish they would address this, but I don't think it's going to be addressed for quite a long time. So I think Visual Studio is going to be stuck in perpetuity supporting .NET Framework. And until that really starts going away, that's just never going to change its target. And so I think that's just to me, that's a huge problem because I've pretty much abandoned Windows only framework. I can't see why you would be building any new apps targeting that, but that's the world I live in. That's not the world that everybody lives in. So in any event, so now what do we do? This is an immutable array. So this is doing a first pass and getting rid of some here. Now what we could do is say simple like bool. Actually, hold on. Let me look at where this is being called. So like method model, property model. And typically, oh, that's why, because, oh, yeah, do we ever pass that in? We are here. For a type reference model and for a return value, we do. So that's why. Okay, that makes sense. So we're not always passing that in. I can't. Naming is hard. There. I don't know what else to put here. Is description needed on explicitly implemented member? So the only time we actually really care about this is in the case where it's being done on a parameter. And the problem is that we don't know here. So we make a parameter model that's on a constructor property model, a method model, and a property model, because a property can be an indexer. So here we've got to know that it needs to be explicitly implemented somewhere here, right? Requires explicit. Oh, so we pass it in, but we don't keep it, which is fine. We could actually potentially say here requires explicit implement and then default that to being no. What we could do here is now say, do another pass where we eliminate caller attributes if necessary. So we would say attributes equals attributes. Well, no, we would only do this if is equal to yes. That's the problem with this implementation is I'm giving back a string. I'm not giving back like a set of things that then you could filter on more. I want to have this do everything. That's the way this has kind of worked so far. But this is just on the method. What I also need to, yeah, this is starting to get really ugly with optional values. In most cases, we don't care about the target. We don't care about the explicit implementation. And we need to know, bool is parameter with optional value, which is also going to be typically false, and is parameter with optional value. So what we're doing in this case is saying that we need to now filter them out. So we say attributes is equal to attributes where it does not equal, nope, not those, color file path. And, oh, we got there we go. So we're going to need to do this 4 times, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 immutable array again. And we don't have an attribute class. So we're doing self and attribute data. That's attribute data. Oh, what does this mean? It's attribute data. Oh, so yeah, attribute class is not null, and there. It feels like a little bit unnecessary, but in this case we have to do it. Now, before we forget, in the method model, when we're getting, this gets the attribute descriptions on a method, but on a parameter, we need to know a couple more things. We need to know, how do I want to write this out? Get description, compilation. We need to go requires explicit implementation. We're just going to fill in the gaps first, and then is parameter with optional value. We're now going to need to have on the parameter model requires this, and then we're going to force this. Bool is okay. So now that should be causing a couple of errors, which of course it isn't because, you know, good. So on a constructor model, we know that would, oh, because on the parameter model, right, we could, okay, this one's, what the hell? We could make these also equals no, and then also do this as false. And then we pass this in here, and we pass in that here. Okay, now though, we got to look at, my keystroking is not optimal this morning. Now that should go away. Yeah, it does. Okay, so in the property model, I would also imagine that doesn't matter. And then in the method model, it does though. Here, we want to say requires explicit, and then we also want to say is parameter with optional value. Well, we know this. We don't have to pass it in here because, oh, we always say whether it has an explicit default value, but when we actually generate the method, we're probably looking to see, does it require an explicit implementation? And if it does, then we don't put the value out there. So we actually could probably get away with this in that, yes, so we can actually use this, has explicit default value. We do need to pass it in here though. Okay, but we don't need it as part of that. And then that makes things slightly better. And then we also need to do this on the property model there. And then let's push this down here. All right. Does that at least build? Okay, so it builds. Okay. Now, would this actually already work? We only do this if we know it's explicit and it's a parameter with an optional value, which the only time we're going to pass that in here is with this one. We don't do it anywhere else. I'm just curious. I'm near the end of my recording time with this. Let's just see what happens when I say run tests. Because with all the optionals, it shouldn't have broken anything. Okay, one failed. Why did one fail? Well, it's the one that we just wrote. So, oh, wait a minute. Did I do it on the wrong one? No, this one should... The base parameter still shouldn't have it. Okay, so, but it didn't break any of the other code. And if I just say build everything, it shouldn't have broken the integration test, which it didn't. So if I understand that right, it's still putting, it doesn't have that there, but it's still putting this color member name attribute there. So we'll figure that out in the next episode and try to figure out why it's still not putting, well, it's still putting the attribute in here when it shouldn't. Hopefully that'll be an easy fix. And when I do that, we need to shore up the testing for getting the attributes in the case with this one. So we've got explicit tests around that. And then make sure that the code generation tests still pass. Okay, I didn't want to make another episode because when I came back after taking a quick break from recording, I noticed I made a really stupid mistake. I had caller file path copied and pasted, and I never added the other 3 in. And so that's why I was getting errors. So once I realized that, I was able to get this test to pass. I had to change the make as well to do that. But then everything passed, ran all the tests, code generation tests, everything passes. So I'm going to consider this thing to be done. So I'm going to close this out, and in the next episode, we'll do something else. Thank you all for watching. Leave comments and questions below. See you in the next episode.